Hi everyone, this is Joy with Create It with Joy. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's card is made using Gina K Designs Ocean Minded card kit. I absolutely am in love with this card kit. I love anything beach and ocean. It just makes my heart really, really happy. So let's get started on this. What I'm doing is I'm laying out this cute heart that looks like it's been drawn in the sand, as you can see on that stamp set to the right. And also it's got a stamp where it looks like the white foam when the waves come up onto the beach. So I'm kind of just laying out my design. I'm kind of marking where the white foam is going to be for this background piece. So I laid that down. Cute, cute, cute stuff. So I laid that down. Sorry, I got distracted by that stamp set. It's just so darling. And I know I'm going to trim this piece down a little bit smaller, so I wanted to leave some room on the edge of that heart, but I did want it over to one side. So now I'm going to be using Distress Oxide ink in Peacock Feathers, and I am just going to be laying that down quite heavy at the top part of this card, and then working my way down to where I made that little mark with my pencil where that stamp is going to end. And I kind of want that to fade into a softer color, almost where it's a little bit left white, if that makes sense. And then from the bottom part up, I am going to be using antique linen and then a little bit of gathered twigs. So this is for the sand. And these two colors together are super, super yummy. I really, really, really love it. It makes for a great beach colors. So again, peacock feathers, gathered or antique linen, and then a little bit of gathered twigs that we'll add at the bottom to make it a little bit dark. But as you can see there, I'm keeping the center almost white and leaving that so where I place the stamp, it's a little bit lighter with a little bit of white underneath it. So here's the gathered twigs, just a little bit mainly concentrated at the bottom, working my way up. To give it a little more brown to that kind of yellowy antique linen. Isn't that pretty? I think that turned out really, really good. Okay, so now I'm laying out my heart again and my piece of my stamp for the foam, basically. I am using Pink & Main's stitched circle die. Any circle die will work for this. I am placing that circle die over where I want that circle to be, sticking that down, because this is actually going to be on the inside of my card and I need to cut a hole on the front of my card. So here's the white piece. I stuck a piece of tape behind the card, stuck that down, lined up my white piece on top of my back panel and removed it. Now my circle will be in the exact correct spot. I ran that through the die cut machine and now I'm going to stamp this heart. I'm placing the scratch piece of paper here because I kind of want to stamp some of that color off to kind of see where I'm at. I stamped gathered twigs first, second generation stamping basically, and then I kind of was a little worried that I had done it too dark, so then I took antique linen and stamped over it. Here's what is fantastic about the Misty. Because everything's already lined up, I don't have to have a heart attack about my ink being too dark. So again, now I decided I like it, and I'm going back and forth between the gathered twigs and the antique linen. So I did the gathered twigs, it was a little bit too dark, but added the antique linen on top and it softened it. I did that a couple times with the antique linen and it softened it just enough that I felt like, okay, it's standing out. It's not too light and it's not too dark. Now I'm going to do that stamp that looks like the white foam. I'm going to be heat embossing this with white embossing powder. So I'm prepping that. Make sure your inked background, all of your ink is completely dry before you do this. Otherwise it will stick to your distress inked background. So I prepped that with my anti-static tool. I'm using Simon Says Stamp Clear Embossing ink, giving this really good pressure. And I needed to stamp it again because I was heavy-handed with that anti-static tool. And so I inked it up again, pressed that down, and now I'm going to be using white embossing powder. And when I saw even just that clear image, oh my gosh, I got so excited because I think, for real, this is my favorite beach stamp set right here. totally in love. Look at how yummy that is, you guys. It's fabulous. So heating up the back, heating up the front, I kind of go back and forth, so it just really helps to not warp your paper as much. But look at how pretty that is. I just think Gina K is a genius for coming up with that stamp right there. Isn't that so, so pretty? Okay, so now I'm taking a few of my alcohol ink markers because I really felt like this heart needed a little bit more detail. I used E31, 35, and 55. Really, you could just pick any colors that you felt like you wanted to use. I'd actually referenced a photo that my husband had, that we had just taken on our 20th wedding anniversary trip when we went to California. We were at Laguna Beach, and he drew me a heart in the sand. So I pulled that photo up, and I realized that when you draw a heart in the sand, you have little clumps of sand falling off the side. So I just did little brown dots around this heart in this different color, because sometimes it's darker and lighter depending on, you know, where the sun is hitting and how dry and how wet the sand is. So I felt like I needed to add a little bit more texture and dimension to this heart, so that is what I've done. And I've also taken a white gel pen and just kind of highlighted some of the spots that were already where you would have highlights. So that's what I'm doing here, just adding a little bit. I didn't go overboard because I didn't want to ruin it. The heart is already fantastic and beautiful, but for me, I just needed to add a little something. So that is what I'm doing with that. A few little white highlights here and there, a couple little white dots in with the other dots. That looks like a clump of sand falling off when your sweet honey draws you a heart in the sand. I think that looks pretty good. White pen is great for detail. Then I realized I needed a little bit more. And I kind of lined this heart with a marker so it has some darker edges and some lighter edges. And then I felt like that looked pretty good, I think. Except for right then when I had to add a little bit more. I'm sure you guys all do the same thing too. But now I'm actually finished. Okay, so now I am using this cardstock, this nice blue cardstock that came in the kit. And there is that white die cut piece that I cut out before. And I'm going to line that up on the front, line up my die cut, and run this through my die cut machine. So now you can see, and that white piece is also trimmed up so it has a nice little blue frame. So now you've got this great front panel, and then this whole card will be trimmed down, this panel on the inside, by a little bit, but now you can see when that's closed, you can see the cute heart and some of that ocean coming through. So now I am using Simon Says Stamp Waves 6x6 cling stamp for that white front panel piece. I am just sticking that down to the center of my MISTI. This I want it to be white on white, so I'm using white embossing powder for this. I'm prepping it with my anti-static tool, clear embossing ink, and white embossing powder. I didn't want color on the front of this because I didn't really want anything to take away from that heart image coming through that hole, but I did feel like the white background needed something. When it was just the white cardstock, I did not love it at all. So to add this little bit of movement with this wave on the front really changed the whole look of it without adding too much busyness to the front, without taking away from that heart image. So I'm going to heat emboss that. Again, I used a white embossing powder, and I'm going to heat that up with my heat gun. Again, I'm just using my tool in one to hold that down. This is what I like to do with my, when I use a whole background stamp on a piece of cardstock, this to me just makes it super easy. Make sure that's all nice and heated through and melted. So now let's assemble this card. I'm using my tape runner. And then of course it ran out right in the middle of me using it, but thank goodness you can put it together quick. Getting all around that circle, and I'm going to adhere this to the front of my A2 size card base. Again, this was the blue cards, one of the blue pieces of cardstock that comes in the kit. And I need to make sure I get it straight and level with the circle, and For some reason, I was just having a hard time, but it turned out good. And then I'm going to add the inside piece. I trimmed that down, so that also has a little bit of that blue frame. And my thing was just not straight and it was driving me nutty. So peeled that up, line that up again, and as you can see that cute heart and just a little bit of the blue and a little bit of the wave. And then I decided on the inside to stamp the sentiment that says "Take time to relax," and it also looks like it has been written in the sand, which I think is really super clever. This stamp set that you can see there is just absolutely, like I said, one of my favorites. Super cute sayings on it. I mean, the cards that you can make with this are just absolutely fantastic. Using my paintbrush just to flick off some of the white that wanted to stick. Heating that up good, and you've got this really cute sentiment. And I did that in white also because I just kind of wanted it to blend in with the ocean. Now my sentiment on the front says "Happy Birthday." Originally I had stamped that in the gathered twigs or the antique linen, and I did not like the brown on the front, so I stamped it in blue. Popped that up on foam tape because I really wanted this to stay super simple on the front. And then added some blue little, like glass drops to the front of this. I think these drops came from Hero Arts card kit a couple months ago. And then that's the card. That's it. Super fun, super cute. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. I hope that this card inspires you to create, and I hope it makes you feel like it's summer because I really enjoyed this. If you like what you've seen, please thumbs up, subscribe, share with your crafty friends. I do have affiliate links below. It costs you nothing, but it does continue to help me. Thank you guys, and I'll be back.